G'day, Aussie Bonsai Bloke here, how you going? Today I'm going to be working on lots of different trees, all my crappy trees, or I suppose you could call them pre-bonsai, just stock that I've grown and collected. Not too many of them have been styled. Maybe this bay tree has had a bit of a style. So I'll be working on about 8 or 10 trees and just getting through them really quick, because what's going on is they're starting to shoot for spring, summer, and I should really have worked on them a couple of weeks ago, so I'm in a bit of a rush to get it done now, but been pretty flat out around the place doing other stuff and starting to get a fair collection of bonsais and stock to work on, so I'm starting to run out of time. And I don't have a shed at the moment, so I can't really work at night too much. Apart from when there's good weather, I'll set up the light and do some work outside, so hopefully tonight will be alright. Probably start out in the daylight and then the video will probably end in the dark, because I've got a fair few trees to work on. I'll be just trimming them back, selecting branches, shoots, and then probably also putting a bit of wire on some of them. Some of them probably won't need much wire. But I basically want to cut them back so that when they shoot, they, you know, put out growth that I'm going to keep, rather than if I don't cut them back now, there's going to be a lot of growth that gets put out that I'm not going to use, so it'll be wasted energy. So I just want to get in there and just clean them all back now, so we get some good growth that we're going to keep. No worries. Cheers for watching. I'll show you the trees that we're going to be working on today. I'll just show you quick, and then I'll just show you the trees that we're going to be working on. This is a bay tree or a laurel. This is an evergreen shrub, small tree to a shrub. So I'll be working on that one, cutting it back. That's had a little bit of work in the past. What else have we got here? We got a patch of crepe myrtles here. There's a crepe myrtle. Another crepe myrtle back there. I'll be just cutting them back and putting a bit of wire on. So, as you can see, hopefully you can see it's just starting to bud out. So it's going to be very hard to wire, because what's going to happen is I'm going to possibly knock off some shoots. So on some of these more advanced ones, I may not do any wire at all, and I might just wire it next winter, so just so I don't. But then ones like this, that's not quite shot out now, probably in a week it will be, so I can probably get away with wiring that one. I can get away with wiring that crepe myrtle. This one here is probably okay to wire. As you can see, a lot of these are fairly crappy trees, but in time they might turn into something. If they don't, well, I'll sell them to someone. Here's a peach tree. Just a fruiting peach tree. I did a bit of carving on it and hollowed it out a little bit, and I'll just be choosing some shoots and maybe giving it some wire, but once again that one's starting to shoot out. Here we got a Prunus, bit of a scar on the root there, root coming outside there, so I'll be also choosing branches on that one. Once again that one's shot. We got a Hawthorn. Just choose some shoots on that. Yeah, none of these are very good trees. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on them. I'm just going to quickly cut them back, like I said, so we get some good growth that we're going to keep. From memory, this one's got some pretty poor roots under here, so not sure what we're going to ever do to fix that. Not sure the tree's good enough to warrant having a root graft, but we'll see. Alright, no worries, I'll get into working on, I guess I'll do the bay tree first, seeing as it's there, and I'll talk you through it all. No worries, cheers. Okay, so this one here, I'm going to simply be cutting back to some shorter internodes. so I'll probably just be cutting back to 1 or 2 depending on the internode length already. This one here's got a really small tip, so I'll just cut the tip out. A couple of these shoots have been on there, look like they've been in the shade a bit, so they're fairly stunted in here, so they'll just be left alone to shoot. And I'll just basically chop everything back short, and once I see what I'm working with here, I'll make some decisions on the wire. Cut these big leaves in half. Just keep going around the whole tree. Anywhere where there's 3 branches, I'll be cutting one off, depending on where it's shooting from. If it's shooting near the top of the tree, I'll be cutting the thickest branch off. If it's near the bottom of the tree and there's 3 shoots, I'll be cutting probably the thinnest branch off so that I can keep some thicker branching down the bottom of the tree. Yeah, it's been fairly neglected, this one. It was trained, but then no care after was given. I actually just got given this one, so when I say no care, I mean it, you know, like the shoots haven't been cut back during the summer growing season, so they did one style and then basically forgot about the tree, and as a result you ended up with all this wasted growth. If you'd have cut this back like I am now, a lot earlier than this, you would have probably ended up with a lot of ramification out here already, but as a result it's not the case. That's why you got to keep on your trees all the time to keep that ramification going, so you're not just wasting growth. Because, you know, most of the bonsai is waiting for it to put on the growth that you want, so you want to make sure you put that growth in the right spot where you actually want it. Right, that's pretty much almost it. So what I'll do now, we got this big fat branch here competing with the apex. Now I'll just bring in a bit closer. Okay, so your apex is either this one or this, probably this one here. Could possibly end up being up here, but I don't think. A few decisions to make, because if we make the apex up here, this one here might have to be cut off. I do like the shape and the movement of it, but no, I think it's going to have to go, so I'll cut it back short and see what reshoots. A few structural flaws in this tree. So here we've got, just see if you can see it. Here we've got this shoot here competing with the apex here, and then next to it you got these smaller, shorter shoot and this little shoot here. What I'll do is I'll come in here and I'll remove the biggest of the shoot. You can see now how your eye goes up towards the apex a bit more. That branch there is quite fat, but I think that'll stay. I may reduce this one here back, and same with this back branch. There's a long back branch here that comes from the apex, from near the apex, and you don't really want it drifting back that far, so I'm going to cut it back to the smaller, shorter one inside the tree a bit more. Yeah, basically this tree is a bit long and leggy. Cut off some of these old stubs. Cut off this fat bit here. So some of this might look a bit brutal, but you're setting the structure of the tree so that later on in its development everything's more balanced and even and a lot more visually pleasing. At the moment you might think it's taken a step backwards, but as the development of the tree continues, you'll start to see progress that we have made here today. Right, so not sure what I want as the front of the tree. Probably not that, that'll probably be the back of the tree. It's a really strong first branch, but it's a lot of growth to just go cutting off. I'll keep it, it'll be a bit of a quirky sort of a tree. And there's a bit of a root base down here, quite a good root base. It spreads out under the ground there. So I think what I'll do, yeah, I mean there's a few issues here. If I choose that as the front, you've got this really strong branch at the back just shooting off to no man's land. It does give it depth. So this big branch here, it does give it depth, but it's a long way out from the tree. All decisions that you got to make. Or you could turn it, you could even turn it that way and cut this one off, but then you got a really straight long bit. I think what I'll do, it's going to seem fairly brutal, is really shorten this one. I might take just that one bit off first. It has certainly improved it. And then I could just shorten this one to get a bit more growth in closer there. And I reckon I'll also take this one here off. Take that knob off. Shorten that. And now the only bit of wire I think I'm going to put on this whole tree is going to just be on these two little branches here, I think. Just cut the leaves down so that you can see better. So I'll probably wire them out to the side, and then that'll be it for this one. Like I say, I've got to get through a lot of trees, so don't have too much time to spend on them. Plus there's not a lot to do on most of them anyway. Most of them will be this sort of similar process. Now remember, just wire the branch in the same direction you want to bend it. Wire's a little bit fat for what we need, but it was the first piece I came across. Okay, cut that wire. Then we'll bend it out. Now we may end up shortening this one down here later, but for now it'll stay. So that's pretty much it for that tree. I also think I'm going to shorten that one. So that should shoot out there somewhere. Still very long, but should be right. Okay, now we got the plum. That bay tree's being moved out. Now, what we got with this plum is a bit the same thing. I cut it back last year, got some branching, but then I've let it grow really strongly. It has helped to fatten up this lower branch down here, and helped to fatten up the top of the tree so you get some more believable taper, because that was a lot thinner than that there. That was really thin. So it's probably helped in that respect. So now we've got to decide what to cut back. Here you might be able to see there's some smaller shoots in behind, and you've got a really fat one in the front. And this really fat one is not going to be any good to bend down and keep, because it's just going to look silly and a long way out. So I'll choose to go for the finer ramification in there. I could leave a bit of a stub to let it shoot from, but no, I think I'll go down to the first branch coming out. We'll clean up some on the inside here, and then I'll probably just shorten these shoots here. So you've got 1, 2 and then 3 coming out of there, but there's only ever 2 from each location, so you can keep all of that. Next, be to shorten this one. There is some dormant buds in here, so I'll be cutting probably back. If I cut out to here, what will happen is it'll divide out here. I only have this straight section, so I might even cut it back to here and just put a little bit of bend in it with wire. Okay, so that's the first branch done. And also you'll notice here I've got a dead cut off bit. I'm going to leave that for now. And just see how the tree progresses, and maybe do some future carving. I might even be able to get rid of some of it now with these snips, just sort of break it down, make it look a bit better. Right, now at the back, I'm assuming this is the front of the tree because it's got the better roots, even though it's not too much at the front there, but I don't think there's anything at the back, so can't keep that. But at the front there's at least something there, so I'll work on that. So to keep that, I'll probably make this the apex of the tree up here, and the rest of it will just be cut back very hard. This will become a back branch. There's a dormant bud there, and that's probably as far back as I can cut it without the whole branch dying, so it'll become a back branch. And these big fat branches here at the top are going to be completely removed. They've done their job to help make a more believable taper rather than just an abrupt change in the thickness of it, of the trunk. So now it's got a more natural sort of a taper to the trunk here, and then up into this line. So that'll become a back branch. We've already got 2 shoots coming out here, so that's going to become a side branch there. Might even cut it back to the first one. Same here. This one's on the inside, I'll chop that out. This one here I'll bend down to come towards you and shorten it so that it divides out. Okay. And then I've got to decide the exact one I want to be the apex. I think it'll probably be up here, so I think I'm going to get rid of this fat one at the back. It's a fairly uninteresting straight section, so that's gone. So as you can see, I'm just cutting off all the straight sections, which don't really add anything to the tree. Here we got 3 coming from one location. I think I might chop the middle one off, bend that one out a bit. Oh, I might even shorten it and let it shoot out again. Let it divide. I quite like it when it divides naturally rather than being bent somewhere with wire. So here I'll just shorten everything. Okay, so as you can see, fairly uninteresting. I'm going to shorten this one more, I think. And the apex will shoot up here. I even think I'm going to chop it right off. Back to there like that. And then let it shoot out and just keep on top of it with all the shoots that come. Okay, this is sort of, I guess, developing the main branch structure in a tree. This is sort of how you go about it. Just sort of cut it right back hard, let it shoot out, and then if you keep on top of these shoots, it'll start to ramify out of here during the summer, and then you'll be able to keep a lot of this stuff. So I think that's about all we're going to do on this one. I'll put a little bit of wire on it. Do need a little bit of wire. When you wire, just make sure that you join a couple branches together, so the one branch basically holds the other branch in place like an anchor. So I'll probably just wire that little section down there. Then I'll come up this main sort of section, go up into one of these branches here, side branches, and then trying to be careful for that little shoot that's left up here. And then I'll just bend it out a bit, bend that one out a bit. And up here is probably okay. Up there is probably okay. This one, I could bend that out a bit. I'll do that. Okay, so I'll just put a bit of wire, measure your wire up, cut it to length. Chuck it on. Bit of a knob up the top there, so I'll go from underneath with the first loop. Yep, so this is powering through the trees tonight. Just be careful that it doesn't break the branch, because plums are a little bit flexible, but they do break. Not the end of the world if it does. Okay, so that's that one pretty much done, so I'll let that shoot out. I may put some fine wire on it. Some fine wire from my big bulk stash. And also remember too that when you do this, you have to remember to take the wire off too, because if you leave this wire on, as it all starts to shoot, it won't take long at all on a deciduous tree, and it'll be biting in quite hard. So always keep that in mind too, which is why, if you know you got a lot of trees, and clip and grow sort of works alright with deciduous trees, you don't want to put more wire on than you have to, otherwise you're going to be forgetting about the wire and end up with all these bite marks in the branches. But for setting structure in the primary branches and the secondary branches, wire is necessary. It's up personal preference really. You can get away with not wiring, but I think it creates a bit more interest with wire, and you achieve what you want to quicker, because if I was to just clip and grow this branch here, I would have to cut it back to here to get some sharper divisions, rather than have just a straight section sitting up there like that. I would have to chop it back and wait for it to divide. This way I get to keep all of this. So that's the Prunus done. I'll move on to the next one. Okay, here we have a Hawthorn. Not much of a tree, but needs to be cut back. Hopefully, I guess my plan with this one is I'll probably end up with a tree about this big and try and get some nice branching around the place. So the first thing to do will be to cut off, or decide where the front is, I suppose. I don't mind sort of that area as the front, coming in that way. So if that's the case, I don't think, I suppose I could keep a little bit of that top here. I'll do it for now, I'll just keep a little bit, but I could quite easily end up cutting that off in a minute. I'll go to the smaller branch here, cut the big fat one off. This one here, I'll shorten that one up fairly significant. These spines you've got to watch out for. I'll shorten this back one up. And around the back of the tree I'll shorten it. I can't even really wire this one because it's already shot too much. And I'm just going to knock too many buds off, do too much damage. So this one will just be strictly trimming. See this little branch down here? Hang on, now I've got rid of some of the bulk. I'll bring you in a bit closer. So you got, first I'll get rid of this one. This one's crossing everything, so that one comes off. I'll just put the camera down a bit further. Makes the tree look like it's leaning back a bit far there. It will be planted at an angle towards you. Probably from that angle. So judging by that, I think I will get rid of all of this top branch here. And if I decide to change the tree later, style wise, I can. They grow that fast, you know, you don't really lose that much if you make the wrong choice. And I'll be just trimming these back nice and short. And I can wire some of these out in probably winter time next year. I might be able to still get some, although the hawthorn does get fairly brittle fairly quickly. So I'll probably be an angle like that. So I'll keep that branch, keep this branch, keep that one out the back. I'll keep this little one out the front here. Also keep this little one. Keep this one out the back, but I'll just shorten it. Same with this one back here. This one here, shorten it. I've got a dead one in here, get rid of that. And one in the middle of a crotch up here. Right in the middle of a crotch. And guess what? That's it, done. So now I just got to let it all shoot out. That's pretty much it. Easy as that. As I said, these are all fairly crappy trees, but in time, you never know. Some of my others that I do like started out like this. Right, I'll move on to the next one. Okay, now we've got a crepe myrtle. This is the one I showed you before that's just started to shoot, which is not ideal, but is what it is. So I'll have to cut it back a bit. This one hasn't really had much styling in the past, so I'll probably just cut back all these big fat branches, make the tree in here somewhere, cut back the fat branches and try and make some sort of an apex. This one's too fat for the design, way too fat, so that one's got to come off. I'll probably keep a lot of this stuff here. Just trim it back a bit. Trim all this back. Just trying to keep your internode lengths down so you don't have any really long straight sections. I think they call it the rule of thumb. So if your straight section's much longer than the width of your thumb now, you just chop chop it right off or chop it back to where it's got an internode shorter than the width of your thumbnail. But doesn't always work like that, so don't just go chopping everything off that is. In general though, I mean, just keep an eye on it, keep it short, and as you get to the outside of the tree, not only do you want shorter internodes, as you get further out you want shorter internodes, but you also want thinner branching as well. This tree doesn't really matter yet because it's just too young to, just not developed enough for that. We're pretty much just doing primary and secondary branching on this one. This one here is getting too wide. I'll chop it back a bit. Just got to be so careful for these little buds that are shot out everywhere. Beautiful time of year coming into spring. I love spring. Watching all the deciduous trees wake up. I think in general that's why I like working on deciduous trees. And then I've got to decide, there's a branch back here and also one here, and then this will be sort of like the apex, so I've got to decide whether I want to take off this bit here. It does have this one at the back. Oops, just broke a little branch off. Oh, it's a dead one anyway. That's why it broke so easy. If it wasn't dead, it is now. Right, so I think I'll keep it. I think it adds more than it takes away. So if I was to get rid of it, I think the line of the tree starts to look a bit funny. It's got a really nice root base here, and the crepe myrtles, when you wet them and when the bark gets old, it gets beautiful smooth bark up there. I could bend that one out a bit to give it a bit of shape. Or I could cut it back harder. I might put a bit of fat wire on that one, but just be pretty careful for, just have to be really careful for the branch not to break, because they get brittle, and I'll also have to be really careful for those buds. Bit of a risky move. Right, so because there's not a branch to anchor it on, I'll probably stab the wire in the ground, in the pot. Do a wrap around here, around the trunk, and then wrap around that branch. Being very careful for these buds. You know, this wire is not ideal. This wire is actually comes out of an electrical cord. It's unannealed, so you've got to be extremely careful, which makes it extremely hard to apply on the branch. Now these are very brittle, so you've got to be careful for that. Now I've seen that, what I reckon I might do is chop that branch back. That way I get that movement, and then it divides, and these will shoot out and divide out here to make that pad. Yep, I think that's it. Right, so that's another one done. All finished for now. As I trim it back over summer, that one will develop fairly quickly. No worries, cheers. Okay, this one's a little bit more developed. It's a crepe myrtle. It's got a nice root system. Another root comes out this way, comes out here. Pretty sure it's got one at the front here, and then it's got these two here, which looks quite nice, but I'm got them covered up for now. As it gets more developed, I'll uncover them. But yeah, the tree itself is a little bit more developed. You can see this really smooth bark. If you wet it down, it really gets quite shiny. For a show or something, you can put a bit of, when it gets to show quality and you want to show it, you can actually put a bit of olive oil on there for the day and wash it off that night, and it'll look really shiny and glossy for the show. Anyway, this one here, pretty much the branch selection's done. I originally hoped for a branch to come out here, but that whole section there died back. That was the main part of the tree, which went up to here about 2 years ago, and that died back when I cut it hard in the middle of winter. The crepe myrtle don't really like to be cut in the dead middle of winter because they got no sap flow. It seems to just die right back into the tree. But once you get these fine ramification, you can, plus it's starting to shoot now anyway. So basically what I'm going to be doing is just cleaning up the lines, chopping them back to shorter shoots, and as much as I can increase the ramification to the thinnest branches on the outside of the tree. So I'll just be going through and just chopping it all back. Just to clean it up, and always thinking about ramification and small internodes and ramification, small internodes, trying to get thinner and thinner branching towards the outside of the tree. Always keeping all that in mind, having 2 branches from each location, not 3. So here we've got one on the inside. I'll chop it off inside with crutch. This one here I did actually keep well trimmed during summer, which is why it has increased its ramification over the last year. Probably a year ago it had fairly poor ramification, not many branches at all, just a few main ones, and just in this last year of growing it's really improved a lot. So just shows that if you keep on it, you can get a lot more branching really quickly, especially on a crepe myrtle. They grow so fast. I know this is a bit boring because I've got to go through and chop the whole tree back a bit. This tree here I originally put in the ground when I first got it, probably, I'm going to say nearly 8 years ago now. I put it in the ground to try and fatten it up, and to a certain extent it did work. It fattened up, but it didn't like the soil around my area. It was too alkaline for it. So what happened is then it couldn't pick up the iron, and it ended up with yellow veins through all the leaves, to the point where they almost had holes in them because they were so bad. So I dug them back out the ground after only a couple of years of them struggling, and just put them in pots, and they seem to be doing quite well in the pots. Really, they look really healthy, and they haven't really looked back since. So just a bit of a tip: if you've got high alkaline soils, they don't really like it too much. You do get a little bit of yellowing. Either that, or you can you could possibly give it supplement iron, either probably more a foliar spray, because what happens is if you put the iron in the soil, because it's still high alkaline, the plant still can't take it up. Whereas if you put it on the leaves, it can actually take the iron from the leaves. And you'll notice fairly quickly too, if you start doing regular iron sprays on the foliage, it'll quite quickly get its green back. It's a bit like a lemon tree, same sort of thing. We have a lot of iron deficiency on our lemon trees around here. Lemon tree is not quite as bad as a crepe myrtle, but still bad enough. So I've just gone through and chopped back some stubs here. Here you can see at the back I've got a fatter, you probably see at the back here I've got a fatter branch, and I'll be cutting back so that I just keep that thinner one, and then that way it'll keep the thinner one. Same with this one. This one's getting quite fat at the back. Keep it back, cut it back, keep the thinner one. So yeah, the crepe myrtles, I don't get flowers too much on the crepe myrtle. Because by cutting it back like this, you're cutting off the branches that it's going to flower from, and the crepe myrtle flowers a long way out from the branching and from what will be the outside silhouette of your tree. So if your tree is going to be here most of the year, the flower, you'd have to let a shoot extend out to probably here, and then your flower would end up out here, which would look ridiculous. And not only that, by letting the shoots grow to do that, then you fatten them up, and then you'll end up with a big fat branch right here, and you'll have to chop it off because you'll lose all your nice fine twigging. So I don't really recommend trying to keep flowers on a crepe myrtle. And to be honest, the leaf and the beautiful autumn colours, you get really nice red autumn colours. The leaves look really nice, bark's beautiful. So I think they're a good enough tree on their own not to have to worry about getting flowers, if you know what I mean. Here I've got a section here which crosses over that back branch, and I think it will look better without it. So I'll chop it off. Just improves that flow a bit. So that's basically all you do. As you can see, you've got to be reasonably tough on your trees. Not so much this one, but the other ones I have been so far. And it looks a bit brutal, but it helps really improve the structure. And then if you keep on the trimming, like I keep saying, you'll end up being able to keep most of the growth over summer. So hopefully next year when I show you some of these trees again, they'll have some good twigging and stuff on them that we'll be able to actually keep. So that's probably it for that one. Back to the front of the tree, somewhere in there. So that's the crepe myrtle done. Well, one of the crepe myrtles. I'll get another tree for you. Alright guys, as you can see, I've got the light on. It's getting dark here. Now this one here is going to need some fairly major cutting. I think when I repot this, you might be able to see the root there. It's got a bit of a split in it, which actually adds a lot of interest. The root system on this one's not too bad. I'm going to have to repot it at a fair angle to get it to go towards it, because at the moment it's leaning back a long way, and the other side of the trees fairly rubbish. There's no, well, there is actually a root down there that looks like it's grown, but although it leans towards you, it's fairly uninteresting, I think. We'll see. So I'll probably be leaning towards here, I think. For the purpose of today I'll choose that. So we got this first branch here which is crossing the main trunk, and it's got some nice fine branching coming out of it already, and you can see that these have already started to shoot. So there's already leaves, so if I wire that, a lot of those leaves and buds are going to fall off. So I might not be doing too much wiring today at all. So I'll chop that back. Now I'll just keep the movement going towards the outside of the tree. So I'll chop that back. This one from the base, I'll chop that off. I could possibly, for now I'm going to keep this branch here. I know the two branches almost a bar branch, isn't it? I could cut that branch. Is reasonably interesting. I think I'll cut this one off and then decide where I want to go from there, because you know, it's a bit of a bar branch unless I do decide to keep this as a front. And then I could carve this out and have it go down there and create some interest. Maybe I will do that, because the way it stands at the moment, I would have to cut. The way it stands at the moment, if I cut one of those two off, there's pretty much not much to replace. And there's nowhere really to have a second branch apart from one around the back, which is a bit ridiculous. So I think I will go for what the tree's offering me. I think I'll go around this side and do a bit of carving to make it interesting. Prunus is good to carve. I'll get rid of this one here. So that one's gone. I'll keep the side. I'll get rid of this main high one. I'll get rid of this small one in the crotch. Like I say, it looks a bit brutal, but it's the way you're developing. I'll just try and move you in a bit closer again. So yeah, that will end up a feature. I'll carve it all out, and that way too I don't have to change the planting angle because it's already coming at you. So as you can see, what that has done by cutting that one off and cutting that one short is it's given it a nice flow up, then sort of out, and then sort of up again. And also the taper, you know, it goes from quite fat then to thinner, and then as it shoots out again, this will fatten up over the summer even further, and you'll get more branching out here. So hopefully it should turn out to be a nice tree eventually, and I'll carve that out. So this will be your first branch, second branch, and I'll keep this one here as a back branch. So this back branch, I'll probably chop that one off, shorten that one, and maybe keep that one short. So it'll be the back branch. As far as, there is another one, a fourth one here, which is, it's almost a bar branch. So that one will get removed, I think. Looks like I removed it last year. So maybe this is the front that I chose last year. But then I got lazy, we moved house, and I didn't do much work on them over the summer, not as much as I would have liked to anyway. Doesn't matter if this is a bit messy, because I want to do a fair bit of carving on this tree to make it interesting. Probably do that next winter. Be a bit of branching in the way when I do it, but it won't be too bad. Okay, so I'll also I'll get rid of these two little bits here. I might keep one short. No, I'll get rid of all of it. Comes from the inside crotch. And then I'll cut this one back short. So that'll be a side branch. Get rid of this stub. Be a side branch. And then we've just got the apex up here. Just move you back a bit. So then we've just got the apex up there, which I'll cut back. I could cut it back here. And keep that as an apex, or I can go more severe and let this one here take over as the apex. And I'll keep this little back branch at the back. And if I'm going to do that, what I will do with this one is I'll let this one actually grow. I'm not going to cut it back at all. And this big fat branch has done its job. It's created a better taper into there, and the carving will help with the taper anyway. And I'll just chop it back. Looks a bit brutal, but what that's going to do is it's going to give it an abrupt angle change here. And then when that one gets fat and you get some more branching, you'll be surprised how quick this tree will get good. Looks pretty crappy at the moment, which is why I've titled it my crappy trees, Crapsai Bonsai. And that's just the beginnings of bonsai, really. If you want to develop and grow your own deciduous trees, this is sort of how hard you have to be on them, really, to get the first initial structure. No worries, cheers. Okay, now we've got a peach tree. As you can see, there's a little peach tree on the side here, which when I repot, I'll get rid of it and put it in its own pot or in the ground, let it fatten up. If I ever get a new house, see what happens. I'll probably choose somewhere around there. Will be the front of the tree. It's got a reasonable root system. I probably don't need this one because this one will be at the front. So you can probably see I'll get rid of that one. This low one here could possibly become a bit of a side branch, so I'm going to keep that and just chop it back, see what shoots. You can see this one here is coming from the bottom of that other fat side branch, or almost secondary trunk, and you don't need 3 from there because then you'll have 1, 2 and then the main trunk. So I'm going to get rid of this one completely. So it's gone. Yeah, it's going to be interesting doing a peach tree. It'll look pretty good in flower when it gets a bit older, I think. In full flower, it's going to look pretty cool. It's not really a lot of taper up the top here, so in the short term it would be better to keep a lot of this stuff up the top to create more interest. But in the long term, you don't see too many peach trees that are really tall, do you? Big tall peach tree. You see them normally quite wide. So there's got a bit of a dilemma here. This side branch will stay. Except what I will do is I'll chop that back. Let it shoot out again. So then that'll hopefully shoot outside. There's also a branch in the crotch here. Get rid of that. Don't want that one. There's a little branch at the back. I won't need these two small ones. There's also a little branch at the back here. I'm going to let that shoot out and become a back branch. I'll show you the back of the tree too. You can see it's all dead through there. So that'll be interesting. Yeah, I just got a dilemma with this top bit, what I'm going to do. And me being who I am, fairly brutal at times. Maybe I could make that the front. It's going to be fairly brutal, but I can make that the front and then chop back the top pretty hard. Except I don't know where my snips are. Hang on. Got the old hand saw. Just my ordinary wood saw. And I'm thinking I'm going to come in here somewhere and this will become the new leader. I'm not sure whether it's a wise idea, but either that or I could leave this one here as the leader. And then sort of as it all develops and you get more branching at the top, it'll fill in and look nice and round like a peach tree should, and hopefully get some flowers. I'm going to cut it. I'll just go around the back to hopefully make it easier for you to see. It's a fairly drastic change, but I think one that's needed. Oh, just hooked my jumper. Got a few holes in this old jumper anyway, so it's not going to matter. Just be careful for your branches while you do this. Well, I've done it. Can't go back now, can we? Oh well. Now, what have we got here? An absolute massacre, by the looks of it. Right, I'll come in a bit closer and show you what we got. I think I like it like that. Well, I hope I do, because I've signed myself up for that sort of a tree now. So I'm going to try and fatten this one here up as a low branch. Have these two as low branches. Have this back one here come out the back. I'll probably keep this as a front, sort of a front branch. And you can imagine this peach tree in another 5 to 10 years, which is how long they take to develop. You imagine it in full flower, it'll look pretty good. I'll chop this back once again to try and get better ramification. I'll chop this big fat one back, slow it down a bit. This inside one on the crotch is gone. I'll chop this one back, and I may even also chop this leader back to try and encourage some of these side shoots. There is a side shoot just coming out here, which will be perfect. It'll shoot out here. And that back branch I'm going to leave to fatten up, I think. No, I'll cut it back, get some more division, because what happens if I leave that to grow out and fatten up, then by the time I cut it back in 2 years' time, everything else is already developed. Then you end up with two shoots coming out here that get shaded from the rest of the tree, and it always struggles to catch up. If I cut it back now, shorter, that back branch, what will happen is it'll divide now, but you'll be able to keep all that, and then as it divides and gets more foliage on it, it'll fatten up anyway. Maybe not as quick, but its overall development will be quicker. But it should be alright. It's a back branch anyway. This one here is probably the one I'm more worried about developing, and if it never gets fat enough, I can always just chop it off, keep a nice tree out, sort of out here to here, and then just have the bottom of the foliage pad around here, and never even have this branch if I want to, if it doesn't develop. But I think it's actually got the beginnings of a nice peach tree. It does have reasonable roots in there, but you can't really see them. I've buried them for now. When it got collected, that one's been out the ground for nearly a year, I think. No worries. cheers, I'll get the next tree. Bit of a marathon tonight. Okay, we've got another crepe myrtle. Sorry about the camera work, a bit dodgy. So this crepe myrtle, it's got a nice low branch in the right spot. It's got like a secondary trunk here, a bit of branching. So I'll do the same again. I'll cut it back pretty hard so it divides out and shoots nicely. This one here is going to be the apex, because I could use this one as the apex, but this one here has a fairly straight line right up through, whereas if I choose this one as an apex, the line changes back to here and back this way. But I'll keep some of this branching on here and then just shorten it so it divides. So I think what I'll do first is I'll just chop this one off and see how it looks. As you can see, it sort of improves it, makes it look more like a natural tree. Pretty much just shorten everything else. I'll get rid of that one out the crotch. Don't know if I need to keep that one in the front. It'll be coming at you. I think I will keep it. Just cut it back so it divides. We've got a fairly straight one here. It will divide out, but you almost get, I'll just check this one. If this one's dead, yeah, that one, lucky I didn't cut that off. That one's actually dead. So I'll keep these two. I'll just chop them back. Don't know if I need to keep it out that far. No, I'll chop it back further. Let it divide back further. I'll chop. This one's actually overlaps it pretty well, so I'll keep it there and hope for some division. Right, so probably want to cut that bit off so that it changes. See, that bit there goes straight to the side, whereas this one comes back, which creates a bit of interest. So I'll chop the one out to the side, which keeps it straight. And now you can see the angle sort of comes back a bit again. And then I just want to keep all this fine twigging in here and let that develop. Chop it all back fairly hard. Always keeping in mind only 2 from any one location, so you don't get a big fat knuckle. If you keep more than 2, you can end up with a big fat knuckle. Crepe myrtles are funny actually. They look dead in the twigging. They can actually look dead, but they're not. They're still green underneath. The branch almost goes black looking, which is quite strange, but it's not actually dead. I don't think the camera could pick that up, but here it almost looks black, and then you turn it and you can sort of see the green there, I think. Very strange. And I guess they get really fine twigging too, so it almost looks like a dead twig. But then if you snap it and strip it back, you can see it's green. Pretty good little trees to work on. They're one of my favourite little trees actually, the crepe myrtle. Yeah, so I'm basically pruning for ramification. Starting off thick in the branching, trying to get finer as you get to the tip. So I'll cut off that fat one, try and get it finer. Cut off that fatter one, or I might even cut that one altogether. Cut it off. Keep that little twigging at the top. The finer your branches get towards the outside of your tree, the more believable it is, because in nature you don't see a big fat branch go all the way out to the tip. They get thinner as they go out, and you want to try and replicate that a bit. So today's almost ended up like a clip and grow technique sort of a day, because I'm afraid all these buds are just too far advanced, so I'll knock a lot of them off if I try and wire them out. And when you cut them back this hard to a fairly short shoot, you're not going to get a very long straight section anyway, because you're chopping it back pretty hard. So that's probably going to be about it for that tree. I may end up actually looking at that through the camera. I may end up getting rid of this length out here. I sort of like it, but then there's a finer branch in here. I think I will. I think I'll shorten it. As you can see, I don't take too long to make a decision. And I've got that many trees that if I stuff one up, well, I guess bad luck. So I might even chop that one back and let that divide out. Okay, so as you can see, that'll now fill in and hopefully turn into a nice little tree. I could maybe chop this straight one back, but there is a little bit of movement in it. You might not be able to see it from the camera, but there's some movement in it. No, you know what? I'm going to chop it back. Chop it back now, get rid of it now rather than wait another year and chop it off and you've lost all that growth. So as you can see, I've chopped this tree back pretty hard, but I don't know if you agree or not, but you can see now if I develop it over the summer, it'll fill in quite nicely and hopefully be a pretty good tree by the end of the summer. Another couple of years, it'll be really good. No worries, there's another tree done. Cheers. Okay, I got yet again another crepe myrtle. They are one of my favourites. So I didn't realise I had this many, but after walking around collecting them all from the benches, I do have quite a few. This one's got a beautiful base on it. It goes from there to there, and it does spread pretty well. Even spreads out this way, so in the future when that gets uncovered, it's going to be a really nice root spread on this tree. We've got a first branch here, and then a back branch out the back here, which I think I'm going to shorten that a lot today, because it goes a long way back in a hurry. Although I might actually keep a lot of it, because it has got a nice shape to it. So if I keep a lot of it, I'll just cut back all these long shoots on the outside, dead stubs. This dead bit. And quite simply, that's it for that branch. Doesn't take very long, does it? After you muck around with trees for a while, you'll start to know sort of what looks good and what doesn't. And although I'm still learning, and I do make a lot of mistakes still, I don't find it too stressful to come in here and chop it back pretty hard. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I went through a crepe myrtle craze where I Just loved them that much. Love the bark, the leaves, just the look of them, their growth habits, their fine twigging. And I think I just went through a stage where I just collected as many as I could. Well, not collected, but got from nurseries. And just slowly fattened up the trunks over the last, I'm going to say probably close to 8 years I've had them, most of them for, the crepe myrtles. Nearly right at the start I collected a lot of them. Okay, so I've gone through, and just while I've been chatting to you then, still got some old stubs I've got to take off, which do stop the natural nice flow of the tree. So I'll take some more of those off. I'll give you a quick spin of this tree. And then, believe it or not, that's another one just finished there. So as you can see, there's a long way between this pad and that pad. Hopefully one day something shoots out of here. Otherwise I could try thread grafting something out here. Leave a nice strong whip here. Bend it during the summer to where it's going to go in. And then during the winter or spring next year, thread it through and I should get a branch out there. So the front of your tree will be somewhere around there. Sort of looks good from a lot of different directions, this tree. So anyway, there's another one done. We're nearly to the last one, believe it or not. Okay, this is by far the fattest trunk crepe myrtle I've got. I did a big cut back here at some stage, and as you can see, they've died back pretty well. You can really see a really defined line of the collar of the live vein and the dead wood. The dead wood rots away pretty well fairly quickly. It's not great for dead wood. It's got a reasonable root system in here. Got a few little roots. They'll fatten up and look nicer. It's got a nice root spread. One good thing about the crepe myrtle, they do get nice root spread. Even out here, there's another branch which goes out the back here. Well, not branch, root, sorry, which branches out. So this one could end up being quite a nice one in a few years to come. Doesn't have much fine ramification on it yet. But because of the size of the trunk, you could probably end up, hang on, I'll just move the camera. You could probably end up the tree almost being out here with fine ramifications. So you can probably nearly keep a lot of this stuff that's here at the moment. Just shorten it all so that it gets nice movement in the branches. And then just keep an eye on it during the summer. So every tree, every trunk, it's all different, because if this was a thin trunk, I'd be cutting it back very hard into this wood here, keeping stuff like that as top of the tree. But because it's got such a big trunk, I think I can afford to have a nice round deciduous tree like what you see out in an old paddock somewhere. So I'll just chop back just to get some good divisions in the branches, and then that'll probably be all I do on this one, I think. And then I'll keep on it during the summer, increase the ramification, and in another year or two this tree could end up being quite a nice tree. At the moment it looks reasonably crappy, but it's got some nice features to it which, like I say, could end up making it quite nice. So yeah, I'm just chopping back any really straight long sections. Don't add anything to a tree. A nice long, big long section doesn't add anything. Anything in the crotches like that one there that I just chopped out. Yeah, so you just want to create divisions and taper basically, and internode length to get a lot smaller as you get further out. If you can create movement, you can create taper so it gets thinner as it goes out, and you can create shorter internodes as it goes out. That's a long way to creating a deciduous tree. Those three things are the main factors for creating a deciduous bonsai, and the best way to do that is just to be on it all the time, trimming it all the time. Let all the shoots grow out to, let them grow out to 5 odd nodes long, chop them back to 1 or 2, and you could probably, especially on a crepe myrtle, they're really fast growers, you could probably do it 3 times during the summer, maybe 4. In Australia here we have, well, my part of Australia, South Australia, we have a fairly long growing season. I'm going to say nearly 7 to 8 months. So we get a lot of growth out of these trees. Some parts of the world, you know, they only have about a 3-month growing season, which does limit the amount of growth you can get. They might only get 1 or 2 flushes of growth, but here we can get 3 to 4. So that's pretty much it for that tree, and I'll just be letting that shoot out now. There is a really ugly straight branch there, which is probably the only one on the whole tree that's that long and that straight. I might end up chopping him in half and seeing where it buds back. I think I will. And then when that develops out here, it'll divide and ramify. Better off trying to do all that sort of stuff now than later. And on the crepe myrtles, now's an okay time of year when it's pushing out. But as I say, end of autumn or moving into winter, when it goes dormant, it's not a good time, because you don't end up with any movement in the sap to heal the wounds, and then they die back. Like this branch, it died back. It's probably out here. I've had others where the whole, if I cut this one back from up here to there, I've had others where the whole tree died back into here and then reshot a new apex sort of out here, so they can die back a long way. So just be mindful of that. I'll just show you all the trees now, because that was the last one. We're done. Cheers. Okay, well, there's 10 trees. There's my dog. Hey, bud. My other dog. Hey. So there's 10 trees I've worked on in probably only an hour and a half to 2 hours. It was very quick work on them. There's a crepe myrtle, hawthorn, bay tree, a prunus, another crepe myrtle. As you can see, you're just chopping them back and not wiring. They don't take very long in the early stages. As they get more developed, that's when the when it gets time consuming, and you get all the twigging you got to look after and wire. There's a peach tree, another crepe myrtle, there's a crepe myrtle, there's my dog, and there's another crepe myrtle. So it's a fairly quick way to get through them, and now I can let them all grow. They can do their thing. and I'll just keep on the twigging and keep chopping them back. No worries. Cheers for watching, Aussie Bonsai Bloke. Please like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers.